All right, Sam, I'm getting fired up.
I know. I'm so excited. I feel like every time we talk, your energy is so contagious. So I'm excited to share with everyone else.
Everybody out there joining early here, welcome. Thanks so much for being here. I got a little bit of music going. The smoke machine's not going to go off quite yet. That's for my outro. Don't worry, Sam. But I am stoked to be here and talk about video. Oh, and Cindy is here. Hey, Cindy. Welcome. Good to see you. Well, I can't see you, of course. But...
Yeah, there's probably a few people that have seen you in the past come to our live summits in 2018, 2019. So familiar face.
Excellent. Well, I hope everybody is here ready to have a bit of a fresh mind on this idea of using video. We're going to share some trends, some new ideas that we're seeing out there, but most importantly, a bunch of actionable tips that hopefully you'll walk away and have one or two things that you change in how you do today. That's the most important thing for all of you right now. When you attend webinars like this, we all smile and nod, but very few people actually take the next step to implementing these ideas. Be one of those 5%. Yes, Andrew, I'm talking to you. Be one of those 5% that action these ideas here today.
So it's 2:01. So I say we get started and not waste any more time. So good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming to our second webinar of our pharmacy marketing and sales series. I'm joined today by Tyler Lessard. Tyler is the VP at Vidyard, co-owner of the virtual sale, and he has been recognized by the Demand Gen Report as a top B2B buyer-centric marketer, is the host of the Full Funnel Show, and has been a good friend of RXinsider for almost 5 years now. As I mentioned, he participated in our live summits in 2018, 2019. He was a thought leader and shared some content with us during the dark times of the pandemic, and now is joining our new series. So how are you doing today, Tyler?
Oh, I am great. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me back. As you mentioned, I had a great time at the previous RXinsider events and excited that you've gone virtual as well. So really stoked to be here. Thanks.
Great. Like I said, every time we chat, Tyler's energy is contagious, as you can tell by his music intro. So I'm so excited to hear what he has to say. As a reminder, the chat and Q&A is on, and we want to make it interactive so you can put in your questions throughout the session today, and we'll kind of take some questions throughout and at the end as well. And we are recording it, so I will send the recording following the event tomorrow. So without further ado, I'll let Tyler take it away.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again for having me, and welcome everyone to this session on using video content as a way to humanize and frankly modernize your marketing programs. We're going to talk about how companies are using video on social media, how they're using video today for thought leadership, for digital marketing, demand generation, because the reality is video is becoming a more and more ingrained part of our lives, both in personal and in business. And, even since last I had the opportunity to address the RXinsider community, things have evolved and changed significantly over the last couple of years, as we've all gotten accustomed to things like Zoom and Teams and being on video conferencing. Even that is having a big shift in how we expect to engage with businesses. And things like live video conferencing dovetail into other forms of content that we now just start to expect in our day-to-day business. What's also great about what's happened over the last couple of years is that people's expectations of what video content really means has also changed. And in many ways for us as marketers and business leaders, it's changed for the better, because people aren't expecting Hollywood production, drone footage videos to explain what they do or to connect with them as audiences. People are more and more gravitating towards content that's genuine, that's authentic, that features real people from your company, explaining ideas in simple and clear terms and using visuals to help. And more, heck, even if that content is made, at your home, at the kitchen counter with a dog barking in the background, It's okay. And in fact, sometimes it's actually preferred by today's audiences. I'm not suggesting you should go rogue and just start making selfie videos, putting them up on your website, but you're going to learn as we talk through the conversation today how the use of video is evolving, but again, how all of you can start to use it, whether you have in-house producers or not. And most of us don't, but there's lots of ways in which we can take advantage of video. So as Sam mentioned, please drop any questions as we go through this into the Q&A or the chat, and we'll pause throughout for any of those and have some time at the end as well. So to give you a little bit more perspective on where I'm coming from as we talk through some of these ideas today, my background, I've been with a company called Vidyard for just over 8 years now. And at Vidyard, we are a video technology company. We're video hosting and management tools for marketing teams. We have video messaging tools for sales teams. And in my life at Vidyard, I've had the chance to work with hundreds, maybe thousands of different companies and individuals on how they use video on a day-to-day basis. So that's given me great exposure to some of the latest trends and ideas and best practices. I've also put a lot of these ideas down into my book, The Visual Sale, that I had the opportunity to co-author with my good friend, Marcus Sheridan. And this is a book that brings together all sorts of different ideas about how to use video in today's business world as a small or medium business throughout the full buyer's journey, from the first marketing touch right through to sales teams, to managing existing customers and looking for renewals and upsells. So if the ideas that we share here today sound interesting, you really want to dive in deeper, the book is actually a great place to go. There's lots of examples, checklists, and so on. But also, as I wrote the book, a lot of ideas came as I talked to a lot of different people in this space, and I'm going to share some of those, of course, with you here in the session today. But I'm going to start with a short story about my own experience as a buyer and how I really started to realize how important video was as part of my buying experience. Because of course, that's what we should all be thinking about as marketing leaders, as business leaders. It's not about marketing and selling the way that we want to market and sell. It's about how people actually want to buy and interact. And so my story, it takes you back about a little over a year when I was in the market for a new car. The lease on my previous vehicle was up and I was looking for something new. And like many of you, if you've shopped around for a car recently, I'm sure that the majority of your research, first of all, was done on your own time, right? Self-serve, online, on the internet, doing lots of searches, looking at lots of reviews, and of course, watching a lot of videos, right? The videos are the ones that show things clearly and transparently and really bring clarity to the conversation. Is this really what I'm looking for, right? Does it really do what these things say it does? So this is clearly not a picture of me and my wife at the dealership. But if you Google buying a car, these are the kind of pictures that come up. But really, it's not how most people buy cars anymore. It's not how they buy anything, right? You're not selling cars, I know that, but your buyers, before you even talk to them, you know this already. They're doing a ton of online research and they're consuming content. They're reading blogs, they're listening to podcasts, they're watching videos. So much like me and my journey, I spent a lot of time with my wife doing research. And once we had a good sense for which vehicles we were interested in, we reached out to 3 different local dealerships. I submitted the forms on their different websites. Of course, as a marketer, that's always so much fun because you get to poke holes in people's digital marketing strategies, if you will. And one of the big things that happened was once I filled out those forms, 2 of those dealerships, I got the usual email responder saying, thank you so much for your interest. We'd love to book a time for you to come to the dealership so we can show you what we have, right? And there was a link to either book a time to go to the dealership or to call a representative to schedule a time. Now, me as a buyer, that's actually often the last thing I want to do, right? The 3rd dealership, though, I want to show you what I got in my inbox. This is a snapshot right from my own inbox. This is what I got from the 3rd dealership. This was actually a sales rep there named Will Huron. And this landed in my inbox and I open it up and sure enough, there's a video here from Will. Now, in this case, this was one that he actually made just for me, which was very cool. And, he let me know in the email, hey, Tyler, thanks so much for what you submitted. We actually have a car at the dealership that is similar to what you specified. I'd like to show it to you. So of course I click watch the video. And Will actually did this on his phone. He like introduced himself. I got to know him. And then he walked me around this vehicle that was on the lot. And I was like, this is it. This is great, right? Like as a modern buyer, those other ones who are asking me to schedule a time to come talk to a salesperson, I'm like, oh man, that's the old way of doing things. This is great. So I watched the video, about 5 minutes long or so, because he showed me in good detail a lot of things. It was great. Answered a lot of the questions I would have had. And by the end of it, I had a very good sense for what they could offer me without having to schedule that appointment. Even better than that, I called my wife and kids in, which is my buying committee, and said, hey, check this out. And of course, at the end of it, they're all like, when do we get it? When do we get it? So I'm telling you this, not because, again, you sell cars, but this is a great example. And it really dawned on me as somebody on the other end of these shifting buyer expectations and how we need to get behind it as marketing teams and even as sales teams, right? Some of the big trends in today's buyer behavior that we need to be super conscious of, and this is where video plays such a key role, are things like, number one, a greater expectation of self-service on-demand experiences. We all get this already, right? We know it as buyers, we know it as marketers and sellers, that more and more people expect self-service experiences. They want to be able to find things, learn about them on their own time. Yes, they still want the option to be able to talk to a sales rep or to have a live dialogue, but more and more of the buyer's journey will keep happening in an on-demand online way, which means us as marketers, our job in the buying journey keeps getting more and more important. Now, we're not at the point, nor will we get to the point where we're going to be replacing the need for salespeople, but buyers now expect on-demand content throughout their entire journey as a way to consume information, to learn, and to better respect their time, right? I was so thankful that I got to watch a 5-minute video rather than having to book a 30-minute meeting with a sales rep at the dealership, which would have turned into a full hour driving there and back. And P.S., I didn't even end up following up with those other 2 dealerships. I just went straight to Will Herman. So that's so important. But as we, as marketers, offer on-demand capabilities, right, there's this risk of business becoming really impersonal. Like, am I really just sending people to articles and knowledge bases to learn about things? Well, no, that's where video plays such a huge role. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Okay, number 2, sort of part and parcel of that, digital first marketing and sales is the norm, right? We all know that now, and it will become more and more the primary, if it isn't already, mode for most people. And finally, as we think about these digital first on-demand experiences, the way that we connect with audiences and earn their trust is just as important as in the world where we did a lot of business in person, but it's often done in different ways. And the example that I just shared really drove that home for me as a buyer, right? I remember the sense, the feeling that I had after watching that video of Will Hearn showing me the vehicle, because he actually showed me a couple things that he was like, I don't know if you'll care about this, but it's something that I like. And there was all this personality to it. Afterwards, I remember feeling like, this guy seems like a great person. I trust him. He's very transparent. He's, trying to give me the best experience. I trust him much more than those other businesses that are trying to get me on a call with a salesperson so they can sell me. So the ways that we build trust in an on-demand digital first world shift as well. And these are all places where video can play such a big role to allow us to stand out, to really humanize this process, to modernize what we do, and ultimately build these relationships that we need to as marketers with our audiences. Now, I'm going to jump into a bunch of examples here in a few moments, but before we do that, I want to share something called the 4 E's of video. And these are what I think of as the characteristics or even superpowers of what makes video so powerful compared to other content formats, right? Blog posts, images, other forms of static content. And again, a lot of these really came from even my own experiences, like what made that experience with that dealership different from the others. So if you would be so inclined, I think the chat is activated. I would love for you all to drop some ideas in the chat. Let me know, what do you think are some of the really strengths of video as a content format? And these are all words that start with the letter E, right? So is video more educational than other content formats? Spoiler, yes, that's one of our E's. What are some of the other things you would think about as really impactful with video? Amanda dropped it in the Q&A. Engaging. I need a bell. I need to ring a bell. Oh, wait a minute here. Hold on a second. Amanda nailed it. Jeff, energetic. Energetic, I love. Exciting, Donna, it depends on who's in the video, but yes, it can be more exciting. Kylie, we got emotional, right? All of these things are actually pretty related. Mike, easy. Ooh, a spoiler, easy isn't one of the four, but I like that as a fifth. Let's say the chat is disabled, but in the Q&A, thank you. Entertaining, Heidi. So these are all in the areas that I think about as well. And there's actually a lot of E words that describe video. What I distilled it down to, no right or wrong answers here, is that video is first more educational than other content formats because of how our brains process visual and audible information. We can learn a lot more and maintain it in long-term memory from watching a 2-minute video as opposed to reading text for 10 or 12 minutes. It's scientifically proven. We don't have time for all the debate, but that is just a fact of how our brains process information. Secondly, engaging, which was dropped in by Amanda, but is also part and parcel of things like exciting, right? Video gives us the ability to tell a narrative, to draw people in, like literally, like make people go like, oh, this is interesting, right? Because we can use tone, we can use visuals, we can use body language, we can use storytelling. Emotional, which is Kylie mentioned specifically, and was also, again, it kind of gets tied to things like excitement. Video has the ability to spark lots of different emotions. We can make people laugh. We can make them excited. We can make them happy. We can make them smile because of how they mirror ourselves on camera. And finally, this is one that people never really get, is empathetic. And what I mean by that is video gives us the ability to demonstrate our empathy to our audience in a very genuine way, right? It allows us to connect as real people. They get to see us, they get to hear us, they get to trust us. Whether that's marketing videos you're putting out with real people from your company explaining ideas, or maybe they're videos your sales reps are recording and sending like Will Hearn did, right? These all create this kind of, they break the like brand to consumer barrier down and help people realize, oh yeah, these are real people just like me who are trying to help me solve problems. And it's hard to do that with other forms of content where they can't really see your people. It's hard to know the authenticity behind it. It's hard to know who really wrote that blog post. So these are what I think of as the 4 E's of video, as make the kind of the superpowers. But I love all the other answers. Exciting, easy, energetic, all these things become part of what we do. So now when you think about that, if you're nodding right now and you're saying, you know what, Tyler, you're right. Video is more educational, engaging, emotional, empathetic. Then you start to ask yourself, well, when is the right time to use video? And you realize quickly, well, when is there a wrong time to use video, right? Like it can apply in so many cases. And then you ask yourself, well, why don't we do more video? And usually it's because, well, video is challenging, right? It's more expensive, more time consuming to produce. And you're absolutely right, in many cases it is. But when you think about the constructs of how we can use it, these things are so powerful. And it's what I really want you to lean into as you think about the kinds of videos you might be making. If you can make a video that's educational, engaging, emotional, and empathetic, all 4 of them in one, it's a home run every time. Very rarely can you do that. So you try to pick 2 maybe of these E's to focus in on. This is going to be a very educational and engaging video, or it's going to be very empathetic and emotional, right? Okay, so let's move on from that. And we're going to use this just as a kind of an underpinning of some of the other things we're going to talk about, the 4 E's. Try to remember those. So let's talk about going back to the trends that we're seeing, the 4 E's of video. How are we seeing it being used in some different contexts today? And if you have questions about these different use cases, again, please drop them into the Q&A. So the first, which is a very common use case, of course, for video, is social media. Now, social media is an interesting topic because there is no one way to use social media, right? I mean, social media is a variety of different channels that give you access to people within your community, both customers and people outside of that frankly, you can use in any way that you so desire. So there's a lot of ambiguity to like, how do different people use social media? But let me give you a few examples of where I'm seeing video really stand out. and how people are using it to be very proactive on their social strategies. So I've got logos on the side here for different social networks that I typically think about for our audiences: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube. I'm sure some of you are like, TikTok, really? Yeah, really. There's a really broad demographic that's now on TikTok, and some of the things happening on TikTok, dare I say, are going to be a big part of the future of content. You've heard it here, probably 10th. But when you think about these different social channels, there's the obvious things of using video for paid media, right? So you can do paid advertising on some of these different platforms with video-based ads. I'm not going to talk too much about that one, but of course, that's one way you can use social media as a promotional channel, right? You're advertising to people, finding them. And that's a great strategy if your audiences live on these social channels. The second thing you can do is, of course, use these for organic engagement with communities, right? Use them as free platforms to distribute content, to distribute ideas, to get people to start to engage with you. And these can be used at any point in a life cycle with prospects or customers. But when you think about using them in organic ways, right? A lot of us were posting on social media. We may be making the odd video here or there, sharing some images and things like that, responding to people. But the real value of any of these social networks really gets untapped when we're creating content specifically for them through the lens of like, what do people on these channels really care about? What do they expect to be seeing on this channel? So rather than just, hey, I've got this great video that's a 10-minute long thought leadership piece, I'm going to now share that on these social channels. You want to think about, okay, if I'm going to pick a couple that are really important for me, right? For us at Vidyard, LinkedIn is a really important channel, as is YouTube. So we'll think very carefully about how does that content or how does that message need to show up on those channels to really maximize engagement with that audience. Typically on things like, well, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, or LinkedIn, short, right? I'm not going to take a 10-minute thought leadership video and just slap that on those channels. It's just not what people are expecting because those are interruptive channels, right? The feed's coming, they see something. And so I might create a very specific 1-minute video that's in a specific tone, a specific style that is based on that original piece, but is really geared towards people on LinkedIn or Facebook. My YouTube channel is a little bit different, right? People on YouTube, they do search for it, they come in, they might spend more time. So I might put the full piece there, or I might reimagine that topic in a more YouTube-centric video. Now, again, this really depends on who your audience is, where you think they engage on social media, what they're really looking for. But I encourage you as marketers to just spend more and more time on these platforms if you're not already. Even in your personal lives, just consuming what's going on. I get inspired every day by some of the best YouTubers and honestly, some of the best TikTokers out there. Now, again, some of their content is just like, it makes me want to, I won't say it. But the way that they recognize how to resonate with their audiences, the way that they could create something that people are willing to watch 3 times over and over again is incredible. And that's really where a lot of the future of video on these social channels is going. It's shorter form, it's more engaging, it's more interesting, it's more real and authentic, it's less produced, and it's more about that kind of authenticity layer. So accordingly, things like, like customer case studies don't tend to work well on these channels, right? Those tend to work great on your website and with your sales team. But thought leadership content done in a certain way can work really, really well on these channels. I'll give you an example of how our own team actually does some, different dedicated content for social media and how it differs from what we create for our websites and other places. So here's a screenshot of a few different, I'm VP marketing at Vidyard, but we also run a brand extension called SalesFeed. Now, Vidyard, as I mentioned, is video tools for marketing and salespeople. But we decided to launch a brand extension called SalesFeed to cater to the broader audience of salespeople that we want to build a relationship with. And SalesFeed is all about, social first content that's about lots of different topics in sales. And so I just wanted to share some of these. I just went through our LinkedIn feed recently, like actually 2 days ago, as I was prepping for this, and I grabbed some screenshots of some recent videos that we've shared. And you may not be able to see it. You might have to squint. You might have to like snapshot and zoom it up. But on LinkedIn, I mean, these posts have, the first one there is 317 reactions, 109 comments, 12 shares, right? The third one over has over 1,000 reactions and over 170 comments. The last one on the screen with Raj Nathan, giving a weird look, was a parody music video that we made. We turned the Red Hot Chili Peppers song Californication into Selling on Vacation, because we knew a lot of people in our community of salespeople. It was the summertime. A lot of people they really hate the fact that when they're on vacation, they still have to take customer calls. And we were like, we get you. And on our social network, we're going to have a bit of fun and we're going to do stuff like that. And that, had 500 plus reactions and so on. Now, a lot of these are short form, right? A lot of them are a minute or so in length. The music video was about 3 minutes. And they're all, with the exception of the humor-based ones, very specific tactical tip kind of things. But this is very different from what we create for our other channels. The other thing too is, and you'll see this in a lot of the other content that we do, is video is a great way to bring the perspectives of others in your market to life, other thought leaders, your customers, people obviously from your company, more so than things like written blogs and others, right? Where it's tough to go like, okay, we're going to do an article that features a thought leader in our community. I mean, that's fine. Often people do collaborative ebooks and things like that. But video is actually a really interesting opportunity for that. When you reach out to an influencer in your space and you say, hey, we're doing a video series on this, we'd love to feature you. What's interesting is your audience, of course, gets to see them. It becomes much more real. But also for those people, yeah, some of them will say no thanks, but some of them will very much be like, I would love that, because on video, I get to build my personal brand. I get to be real. It's actually more interesting, right? So we actually do a lot of that in our content as well, which works. So anyway, sort of a sidebar, suggestion for you. So those are just some examples about how we create social first video for our LinkedIn channel, that it's actually created for our LinkedIn channel. It's not just repurposed from elsewhere. Lots of other examples of those. And it's not to say that you shouldn't repurpose other content on your social channels. That's absolutely a great place to start. But as you think more and more, if there are social channels that are really important for your business, I encourage you to make sure you're creating content and of course, video content specifically for it, designed for your audience. Sam, I wanted to just invite you back off of mute to let me know, have you seen any questions come in around that, or do you have any feedback or questions on what you've seen with video in social media?
Yeah, there looks like there is a question in the Q&A. It says, your 5 sales examples are all camera vertical, not horizontal. What's the norm, or does it matter anymore?
Oh, I love that question, Mike. I just see it there. Thank you. So as we all know, the different social networks have their own, often unique, unfortunately, what's the word I'm looking for? Size and shape, resolutions for your different video formats. So LinkedIn, for example, is typically more of a landscape sort of format. Instagram Reels and TikTok are vertical. Facebook is kind of more of a square. And so what's interesting though is we've found, and this might just be for our community, but on LinkedIn as an example, our videos that are in vertical format are actually often videos we've done for TikTok or Instagram Reels that we then share on the LinkedIn channel. And I know I just said, make it specifically for LinkedIn, but when we made it for TikTok or Insta, we had that in mind. We're like, this is also going to go on our LinkedIn channel. And we found that those videos tend to get a ton of engagement. And I think what's happening there is that when people see that vertical format, and if they see like a little TikTok symbol on it, they have a different expectation of what this video is going to be, right? So I think, I haven't done any science behind this yet, but my gut says they're seeing that video and it immediately triggers in their mind, this is going to be short, because any other vertical video I've ever watched is always short. And it's going to be a little bit different. It might be a little bit fun, and it's going to be higher energy. And so I think people are actually kind of gravitating towards that. And it's funny, I know I've talked a little bit about TikTok here today. I often refer to LinkedIn as where grownups watch TikTok videos. At least in our community, it's becoming true. And I'm seeing a lot of that shared cross-channel. And I think there's actually a really neat opportunity there. So I think the vertical format sometimes just gives people an expectation that this is going to be short, it's going to be fun, it's going to be high energy. It's something that I might be willing to spend 30 to 60 seconds to watch. So it's a bit of a psychology hack. And we found it to work really, really well, especially on LinkedIn. Yeah.
I have a question, Tyler, as you were talking and you said, 1 minute videos are typical. What if someone only had, say, one video and they kind of want to repurpose it? What do you think the sweet spot is across multiple channels for length?
Yeah, it can often be a tough one to kind of figure out, but we do this as well. I'm a big fan of, when let's say you have a longer form piece of content, let's say you've got a 3 to 5 minute thought leadership video discussing a certain topic or answering some questions. What we'll do is we will grab a short clip from it that's a very actionable idea, right? And we'll take that and we'll turn it into a 30 to 60 second clip. And sometimes they feel like they start almost like mid-sentence, right? Because you weren't necessarily planning for it ahead of time, and it might be a bit of a hack cut. But what's interesting is I've found people don't care, right? Like if the content is good, they don't mind if you've got a hard cut here, or like somebody's talking and then all of a sudden you clip down a sentence in the middle and picked it up on the other side, right? And there's a hard cut where they're talking and then all of a sudden their head's over here because you cut out 30 seconds in between. But people don't care. And in fact, often I think they like that because they're like, hey, great, like you're respecting my time. So we'll often do that. We'll go like, I want to grab this sentence, the punchline. That's a 1 minute tip. I'm putting it down here. And then I'm also in the comments saying, if you want to watch the full discussion, click here to go over and watch it on our website. So don't be afraid to do things like that. You can repurpose that content. You can cut it in different ways. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Our audiences generally don't need perfect. That's not necessarily something I'm going to put on the front page of my website. But for social, that stuff really works well.
I think one more question just came in from Brian, and then I'll let you continue. Yep. Are you finding videos being watched with no sound? And should you plan for this?
Another terrific question. Good one, Brian. So absolutely, you need to be mindful of the different platforms and how the viewing experience tends to work. So I'll give you the examples I'm most familiar with because we spend a lot of time on. So LinkedIn is a channel where videos autoplay in the feed, but they autoplay muted. So first of all, you always want captions on those, because if somebody does come across it, you want to make sure they can start reading along before they decide whether they're going to unmute it. But you also need to be hyper conscious of, I got to capture their attention in like that first 3 seconds, because it's going to be muted. I can't rely on like somebody shouting at them. So they're going to see this and it's going to take about 3 to 4 seconds for them to decide, am I going to like click to actually watch this, or am I going to move on? So you both have to be conscious of, this shouldn't depend on sound, and you got to capture their attention pretty quickly. But I think it's, having captions is really important on some platforms, but others, like, again, TikTok is an example. I'm sure most of you aren't making videos for TikTok yet, but that's one where the default is videos play with audio on. So you don't have to be as worried about it there. So know your platforms, know the default experience, and plan for it. Absolutely. Yeah. I do find some of the videos we'll make for LinkedIn, we might also like bake the captions into it so that they don't like have to show up as an extra caption. They're just part of the video. So as they're watching, they see it. The benefit of that as well is you can like emphasize keywords to help with comprehension and things like that. So there's little tricks like that that you can do as well.
If you want to do one quick one, just came in, and then we'll save the rest for the
Perfect.
end.
Yeah.
Adding intros and outros eat up time on these short video clips. Do you think they're necessary, or or just what we need to use before?
Yeah, another great question, Raul. Thank you. So yeah, the question is like, if you're trying to do a short clip and then you're like, well, you have to have this intro to like introduce the idea, you need these closing statements. I think for a lot of the stuff we put out on social, that's not always necessary. And you can use the text and captions around the video as a way to cover that. So again, what we'll do when we grab a short clip and we say, look, this is just like a 30-second tip, we're going to cut right into it, and they're just going to get right to the value, is we'll make sure that the post, the text part of the post provides that introduction. It's like, we sat down with Sam at RXinsider, and you won't believe what she said about video, ... right? And in the actual video that you play, she's right into it. She's like, I think video is the most important thing, blah, blah, blah. And we don't feel like we have to add that introduction. So sometimes the captions or the text around it can help fill in those gaps and work really well to complement the video content itself. That's how I would handle it. Yeah. And similarly, Mike said, do you ditch the corporate logo at the beginning? On social media, I personally think you do. I think so. Stuff on your website, things that people are coming and finding, your corporate logo at the beginning and those kind of bumpers, great. On social media, usually I wouldn't do it. A little bit at the end is okay, but I'd take it out of the beginning. Yeah, I'd be value first, interest first, and make it about them, not about you. Slide in a bit about you at the end once they watched. Yeah. Okay, let's hop into topic number 2 here, which is video for thought leadership, which is honestly a lot of similar ideas to what we talked about with social media, but I want to get really explicit again around some of the things that I'm seeing today. So when it comes to thought leadership, when I think about this, I think about, we're creating content that we're putting out both on our own website and could be third-party channels, social channels, and others, as a way to both kind of build up our brand in the market, having people consuming our content and recognizing, hey, this organization, they know what they're talking about, I trust them, and then exposing them to be able to understand what you do and hopefully do business with you. But thought leadership can also be content that we're creating to put out to existing customers or people in existing opportunities. But really, it's all about how we help our audience learn about things that we uniquely have a perspective on or expertise in, and not about our products, right? That's the one thing that's outside of thought leadership. Is not about your products or offers. It's about broader, interesting topics. And when we think about video-based thought leadership, as opposed to blog posts and ebooks and others, again, this is where I think those 4 E's of video really shine. Video is such a great way to, of course, educate people, and that's what thought leadership is all about. So you really want to lean into that and think, if I know my audience cares about this topic, or they're asking this question, or this big trend just happened in the market and we want to share a perspective on it, video can be such a wonderful way to bring that to life, but doing so in a way that, again, has real people, that brings up the trust factor and the authenticity factor, that might use visual elements, not necessarily graphics, but visuals as a way to help create clarity and emphasize different points. They can feature different people from the community, different experts, different influencers, providing their perspectives, which again comes to life much more in video than it does in an ebook or something else like that. And these are all ways in which I'm seeing video now be used for thought leadership, whether it be one-off pieces of content, where we say, hey, we want to tackle this important subject. We're going to make a video about it, and we're going to figure out an outline, and then we're going to bring it to life, but we're going to include 2 different opinions from experts. We're going to have one of our customers share their idea, and then we're going to wrap it in this really nice narrative. Or it can be something where you're also doing series-based content. So I'm seeing more and more companies doing that, where, it could be, weekly, it could be bi-weekly, it could be monthly, it could be whenever a new one's ready, that they're creating like series with videos, much like they would a podcast. And, the one on the top left here is part of a series that we created. We do a lot of these on video selling tips featuring different expert opinions. And each one is like 2 to 3 minutes long, and it features a different expert sharing their one big recommendation for how to be successful with video. And it's something that we carry on for a number. And the nice thing is it becomes great content that we can share in different places and build thought leadership around, but you can also promote the series in addition to just individual assets. So now you've got another way to engage your audience in thought leadership. So you can now go out and, your existing audience, you can say, hey, we're really excited. Check out episode 3 of our great new series, ABC. This week, we're featuring this or talking about this. And the nice thing is if somebody comes in, they're now exposed to the series and they're more likely to cross-engage. And now you got somebody spending an hour watching these different videos in a series. And it also kind of aligns with how we consume content in our personal lives. It's very different from how you might do blogs or ebooks or other thought leadership content. It's more like how you might do a podcast. So lots of different ways that you can do this. And, there is no prescriptive best way to approach it. But if you're not doing some of these, these are things that you can think about. The more top of funnel, when I say that, of course, I mean, broader awareness, trying to reach broader audiences. The more top of funnel it is, much like your written content, the broader the topics you want. You want it to be more about answering questions or addressing topics you think that the community may have that aren't just about what your business does or your products. And again, I think those are areas where featuring other people from the community can work really well. As you move into more what I'd call mid-funnel thought leadership, right? The thought leadership that's more for your audience, like your audience who's now following you, they're engaging in what you do, and they probably want to start to learn more specific things. And they may even want to start to get your perspective and even a little bit more about how you help solve those problems. That's great thought leadership as well. They're things that can be used during the sales cycle. They're also things that can be used more broadly. And that's where you start to focus in on your people, your customers. And again, you might be talking about topics that are now much more closely related to your actual products or services. And again, just some visual examples of what I'm seeing, we're doing and some others. This here is a screenshot of some of our different content on our Sales Feed YouTube channel, actually. That I think of as really top of funnel video-based thought leadership. The one on the left is a series called Sales Stuff Explained. So this was a really interesting one because, again, we're targeting sales reps as our main audience. And, we started to ask ourselves, what different topics salespeople are interested in learning about. And we started to look around like whether there were any great series that really talk about these. And then I think one day I just watched an episode of Explained on Netflix and the light bulb went off. I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to do an Explained series, but for salespeople, right? We'll call it Sales Stuff Explained. And the rest is history. And so we started to make these episodes on, as part of Sales Stuff Explained, where we explain different important topics in sales. The first one there is called the perfect discovery call. So it's how to make the most of a sales discovery call. The second one is sales jobs explained, right? What's the difference between an account executive, account manager, sales development rep? How to book sales meetings, how to run a demo. And then we have others on how to do proposals and, some other topics. And it's got this cohesive brand experience. But again, these are all very top of funnel topics, but we bring them to life in video. And every one of them features experts from the community stitched together with a bit of a voiceover narrative. And it's really interesting content. And now we've got this great explainer series for sales professionals. We promote the heck out of this. And some of these have thousands and thousands of views on them. The ones on the right are a different approach we took called Sales FAQ. And this is where we create an FAQ series. I love this one. And it's actually an easy formula to reproduce. So I encourage you to take notes on this, and I can make sure I point you out where to find some of these as an example. But what we did for this series was the gentleman in the thumbnail images, a member of my team named Will Aiken, not the same Will that sold me the car. So what he did here was we found, again, similar topics we think salespeople care about. Cold call openers, a big question for salespeople out there. What's the best way to open a cold call? So what he does here is he goes out and he finds, 7 or 8 different influencers in sales, and he records a quick Zoom chat with them where he asks them all the same 5 or 6 questions, right? What do you think about this? What's your tip for this? What do you think about this? And then he takes that footage and he mashes them together where he goes, okay, in this one, we're answering about cold call openers. What's your best cold call opener? And then you basically see each of these different 7 or 8 sales experts answer that same question. And so you get a bunch of different perspectives, right? There is no one best answer. everybody's got a different opinion. But now you've got this like 6-minute video where you get to see 8 different people share their ideas for a great, in this case, cold call opener. Now it's made in very much a like, hey, he's just recording these over a Zoom recording. They're fast cut together. We do things like, yeah, we cut out sentences in the middle to make it snappier. We add a little bit of music behind it to keep the momentum up. And like that video has crushed it for us. Thousands of reactions and hundreds of thousands of views on LinkedIn. On our YouTube channel, it is like just gone like gangbusters. It's amazing. It's really simple to create. And so we kept repeating that formula, and we've got all these micro videos asking experts to answer one question and then putting all of their answers kind of together to give our audience some great ideas. So again, these are like interesting ways, like that wouldn't have worked as well in a written article. Like, yeah, you can do that, but in video, it really brings them to life. You can fast cut them together, really, really helpful. And then as we talk about some more mid-funnel, this is actually where I love what our friends at RXinsider do, where, you know, this is now getting more about how do you not just now build awareness and pique interest, but now how do you really create clarity for people? How do you create connection for them now that they're engaging with you? And, you know, these kinds of content assets where you're now having experts from your own company talking about specific topics, right? Like in this case, how has pharmacy evolved to be a strategic asset in transforming healthcare? And this is where we've got our CEO, we've got our chief pharmacy informatics officer. Again, they're like answering questions to share their wisdom with the audience, but they're doing so in a way that also creates a connection to how they can help, right? So this is where they're getting more specific, and they're talking about a perspective, sharing a trend, and then explaining, and that's why, you know, we're doing ABC to help solve that, you know? And so these are great sort of mid-funnel thought leadership assets. So many different ways that you can do this. Again, I could have 100 slides with different examples, but what the one thing consistently I see in most of the content that resonates with me are these are real people authentically answering questions that the audience has. And again, doing so in a way that feels personable, interesting, and helpful, right? Which all comes through really well with the 4 E's of video when you think about it. Now, let me talk about this last part here, and then we'll hop into some Q&A for anything else that's come in the last section, as well as this. This kind of extends that mid-funnel conversation where, you know, somebody has demonstrated interest, they've, you know, followed you, they've engaged with your broader content, and they're now coming in to learn about you. And maybe they've put their email address in somewhere, they're now in your email database. How are you using video to actually move somebody through the actual buying journey now? And this, again, is where there are countless examples. If you think about the 4 E's, this is all about educating that audience. It's about engaging them to keep their attention and to explain things to them and creating that real connection. So a few tips, things that I've seen. Again, more and more on websites, we're seeing things like explainer videos are great ways to visually educate people on how it is that you help, the problems that you solve. I think actually leveling down, I'm seeing more and more companies have demo videos and demo centers on their websites. Now, it depends whether you're a product or service company. Is it a software product, a physical product? But having a place where your prospects can go to actually watch one or more videos to really see how it is that you help and to actually see your products in action, I'm seeing that happen more and more. Now, a lot of people are worried where they're like, you know what, I don't want my competitors to be able to see what we do. So, you know, no way, that all has to be like locked away in a vault. But the reality is, if you can give your prospects the best experience, right? If that salesperson back at the dealership was too afraid to like make me a video to show me what the car was really like, it would have changed the experience for the worse. And I've seen countless examples now of companies who put demo centers up on their website and they let prospects openly watch and see what they do. And I hear over and over again that they are converting more people off of that content because you're giving them that chance. They're not going off to your competitor to see what they do and then follow up with them, right? They're like, great, I've seen it all right here. This is amazing. I do want to follow up with this company. Obviously, things like customer stories, other things work as well. And then be mindful if you are nurturing prospects. Maybe you have an email database that you're, you know, nurturing those people or sending them emails or campaigns. Feature video content in those. This is often where you don't necessarily have to create anything new, but this is a great place to use some of that thought leadership content you've been making for your website and social channels and send it out as part of your email campaigns to your existing audience, right? Instead of emailing them just saying like, hey, we're excited about this new product, click here to get a demo. A simple message that's like, episode 3 of whatever it is just dropped and you won't believe it. And, that email is, hey, we're excited to, share episode 3 this week. This is what we've talked about. And we've got this amazing person sharing their perspectives, right? Getting people to engage in that can be really, really powerful. If you are launching products, again, video is a great way to actually show people, to explain it, to feature, any of your early customers who have seen success, all those things. So you get it. There's all these different use cases for video, and I'm seeing them used more and more every day by different brands out there. It's tough to get behind this. And you're probably watching right now going, Tyler, you've just there's 50 different videos here I need to make. I don't have a budget to do that. It's okay, right? Nobody does. But I want you to really start thinking about where could these videos have the biggest impact for us? Where's our biggest gaps? What are our biggest challenges? Is it attracting new audiences and maybe we focus on thought leadership? Is it we've got a huge database, but nobody's converting to sales? Maybe we focus more on mid-funnel demos, explainers, things to build relationships with those people and show them what we do. Maybe it's you have a problem with existing customers churning, right? Maybe you want to start making, videos with your executives, sharing their appreciation to those customers to make them feel more connected to your brand, right? All these different ways that you can tap into it, but none of these have to be big productions, right? Some of these things you can do in-house. Some of these things you can do with partners like RXinsider. Some of these things freelancers can help you with. So I want you to think a little bit more creatively about ideas and then creative ways to get them done. So to summarize here, again, talked about a lot of different things, but I obviously get really passionate about how video can help companies today. The opportunities that I see out there, as we teed this up, it's a great way to humanize and modernize your brand in this world where most of our interactions are going to be online and digital first. It's a great way to align with the changing expectations of audiences. Not everybody is going to self-select to watch your videos, obviously, right? But I bet you there's a good percentage of your audience that would rather watch a 3-minute video about a topic than read a long form blog about it, right? So today's marketing is a lot about providing those choices and allowing people to engage in the mediums of their preference. And then finally, again, as I've hopefully, really driven in, video is just this great way to help you start connecting with your audience in ways that are more the 4 E's. Say it with me, everybody: educational, engaging, emotional, and empathetic. And if you can do all those things, the business comes, right? You just have to start figuring this out. And again, my last word of advice is if you just start getting more comfortable with this, you'll start to create a culture where video becomes more natural. And a year or 2 from now, you won't be sitting there saying, man, I wish we started doing more video a year ago. It's really, comes down to that. So hopefully this gives you some great ideas. Sam, I'll bring you back on for any other questions that we had come in. But as we do that, I'll just let everybody know if you do want to connect with me, LinkedIn is my home online. Feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to answer any questions. If you want a copy of this deck, happy to send it to you. So feel free. I mentioned my book, The Visual Sale. I'm not here to promote that, but it goes a lot deeper into a lot of these things that we talked about. It's on Amazon. If you're interested in learning more about what Vidyard does, please feel free. So Sam, with that, I'll turn it back over to you for any other questions or things on your mind.
Yeah, one question came through, and we get this question a lot with our video projects with our clients. But out of our 4 product experts, one of them who I'd call good on camera. How do you get around this? And I'm curious to hear your thoughts because we get that a lot. A lot of people read, cue cards, and we try to veer away from that because it's not exciting to watch. So what do you think?
Yeah, it's always a tough one, I'll admit. There are certainly people that are just much more natural and comfortable on camera, and those who simply aren't. Those who aren't, it's great to start to give them chances to get better and better at that, but it's not always going to work. So first of all, yes, identify those advocates in your company that want to be on camera, that you think bring great personality, and lean on them, right? So if you've only got one product person, if that's your go-to person, that's fine. And if all of your videos include that same product person, it's actually all right, right? They kind of create this little micro brand as well. But if you have other folks that you really want to try to bring out of their shell, I do encourage you to have the opportunity for them to participate in different video projects. Try not to have them fully scripted if possible. A great way to do it when you are filming people is to approach it much more as a conversation than as an interview or having them recite lines. It doesn't always work for every type of video, but the more you can be like, okay, I'm going to just turn the camera on here, but don't worry about that. Let's just talk. Let's have a conversation here. And even start it off, getting them talking about themselves is much more natural for a lot of people. Just let the camera roll and start with the like, hey, Sam, all right, so we're going to dive into the meat in a couple minutes, but before we do that, I noticed on your Facebook that you got a new dog last week. Amazing. Congratulations. Tell us about your dog, right? And as people start to talk a bit more about themselves, that they can do more naturally. And then you can start to dovetail into the real things, right? And as Sam tells me about her dog and she starts to put a smile on her face, then you didn't actually get a dog, did you, Sam? Like
no, a baby, really... but not a dog.
Oh, right. So Sam, tell me about, right? So I went, Sam, this is amazing. Tell me about the baby. And then Sam's smiling and she's getting into it. And then I'm like, all right, Sam, now let's talk a little bit about, what we're doing at RXinsider, right? Now you're going to stiffen up a little bit, but now you got a bit of the rhythm going. If you can make it a bit conversational, but also if you do need people to recite lines and you are scripting it, also be mindful, as I alluded to earlier, you can always cut things together afterwards. Don't try to force the person to memorize 5-sentence long paragraphs or asking them to necessarily read a long script into a teleprompter. Try to break it up into small chunks and ask them, okay, we're just going to try this one thing here, this one line, right? We want you to say this. Right. And once they say that one line like 3 or 4 times, then it's like, okay, we got that. Now we're going to say this line. Right. And they do it 3 or 4 times and they nail it. And then you can cut those two together. And if it's weird on camera because they like move or something when you stitch them together, you can do little tricks. Like the first one, it's zoomed down a bit. But then as soon as you cut to the second line, it suddenly zoomed like is a zoom cut. Right. So it feels like, oh, you were just shifting camera lens and it feels natural. So there's little hacks like that you can do. So that's what I like to do with people who aren't as comfortable on camera. Make it easy on them, make it a little bit more fun, make it conversational, but then just have them do one line at a time and then focus on the edit afterwards as a way to stitch it together. And they'll often end up performing better and feeling more confident. Like they don't have to read, again, five sentences in a row. And if they miss one word, they got to redo it over again.
There's a couple more in here. What do you think of taking clips from webinars that feature thought leaders?
Are people tired? As an extension of that, are people tired of webinars as well? I think using a backlog of recorded content like webinars is absolutely a gift that can keep on giving. Re-promoting some of that content. But what I like is the idea of cutting snippets from it, but then don't re-promote it as like a snippet from a webinar or like referring to it as a webinar, right? I mean, it wasn't. It was a great recording and conversation and interview with that person, right? Treat it as such. So again, yeah, feel free. The challenge is sometimes it's like when it's a presentation and they're presenting in the corner, that format just, people will see that and they'll be like, they just have an expectation. This is going to be boring. I'm not going to watch. So you do have to be a bit careful with that. Sometimes it won't do the content justice. But, it's free content. If you need to fill gaps, that stuff can work. The other thing that sometimes we'll do, which is an interesting one to think about, is you can make a video where you take that snippet from the webinar, but you create something fresh and new around it. So what I mean by that is, maybe there's this, 3-minute clip from this webinar where they're explaining this really interesting idea, and you want to put that out there. Instead of just cutting that, the beginning is actually, so for example, maybe I'm on camera and the start of the video is now, hey, it's Tyler here. this topic is a really interesting thing. And some of the things we've heard are A, B, and C. One great tip is this. We also spoke with expert X about this, and here's what they had to say, right? And then it cuts to the webinar clip. And then after the webinar clip, it comes back to your person. And they're like, what do you think about that, right? Really interesting perspective. By the way, there's a full interview with them at the link below. But so there's ways like that you can take it, you can kind of freshen it up and package it in something that feels a little different, but it's still pretty minimal work.
Great. There's one more question. I think we can answer that and then wrap up. What software is best, easy to use for creating the videos in-house?
So for video editing, the great thing is it's so approachable now. There are lots of editing tools that, I think anybody can actually get comfortable using. Adobe Rush is actually a really great tool. It's kind of Adobe's entry-level product that isn't as complex as Premiere, which is really their producer level. So Adobe Rush is great. I use a product called Camtasia that I love. It's really built for more like doing screen recordings and things like that, but its editing capabilities are everything I'll ever need. So it's a great one. iMovie, if you're a Mac user, is really easy. So there's a bunch of other ones out there. So I encourage you to sniff around, try some out, and see what works. In addition to the video editing tools, try to get access to like a library of music, sound effects, and even stock video. And I use Envato Elements, which is amazing. It has everything I'll ever need. I can go in there and say I need an epic movie trailer soundtrack, and like, boom, there's like 100 different ones I can choose from. So those can help too, as you're editing your videos. A little bit of music in the background, the odd sound effect, maybe a little bit of B-roll footage to cut a splice together. That stuff works really well too.
Great. So I know that need to like run back to my desk and start creating videos this
Let's go
week.
make videos.
So I'm sure that attendees can relate. But thank you so much for everything that you said today. I know everyone appreciates it and can use the tips. And yeah, remind everyone again where you can find it: LinkedIn, Vidyard. I know he'd be happy to answer questions if you have anything else.
Yes. Awesome. Yep. See you all on LinkedIn, and DaVinci Resolve is another great recommendation for a video editing tool. Slide that in. Thank you, Jeff. Awesome. Well, thanks again, Sam, for having me, and thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you. Hope everyone has a great week.